check. Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario on stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio. Once again with your host, Nick Burnaby, here on UCY.tv. Thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure you bookmark UCY and check out the other awesome hosts that are on this independent radio station, because that's what it's all about, is supporting independent media, supporting honest journalism, supporting, you know, people that line up with your views more closely than these people on CNN, which is a perfect example, or Fox News, etc. with this, all this stuff they do to us, with whether it's dumbing us down with mindless content or feeding us propaganda. None of it's really healthy for anybody that's trying to think for themselves. So, you know, we're better off supporting people that support us, I guess you could say. And I'm going to be joined by a few guests tonight, including my co-host DB, which should be on pretty soon here, as well as Cassius Methel from the antimedia.org. I'm sure you guys have seen his awesome articles, and he writes a lot about police statism, viral articles about government overreach and stuff like that, because there's just so much of that content out there now. I mean, it's like an unlimited supply almost, and it's you know, it's one of these things where we have to cover this stuff even though we may not want to, and it is a bunch of horrible things that the government does. But that's stuff that we have to cover, you know. We can't just decide not to or anything like that. And I'm joined here by a caller from 858. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, Nick? DB calling in from Cleveland, man.
Awesome, man. Glad to have you on the line. I couldn't get a hold of you on Skype there, so I'm glad you're on.
Yeah, you know, there's my headset broke on the plane, so.
Well, that's never a good thing, I guess.
No. Well, you know.
We got all kinds of news to talk about tonight, and I figure we'll jump into this CNN stuff right away because that kind of concerns us directly here.
Sure.
CNN is looking to cut its workforce by approximately 10%, which means it's going to be cutting about 300 jobs off the roster. And then we got the New York Times cutting 100 jobs from their newsroom. Now, according to CNN host Brian Stelter, which is that guy that does the show that actually critiques the corporate media, which is actually one of CNN's only decent programming shows. Anyway, a quote from him. Now, there's some overall shrinking going on, but the better word for what's happening in the media today is reshaping. Through layoffs, through cuts, through new investments, reshaping for the digital future that really feels more like the digital present. It's already here. None of this context makes it any easier to say goodbye to our colleagues. In fact, it may make it even harder because the fact of media in 2014 is that reshaping of all kinds is going to continue. Now, this is pretty big news. I mean, I guess everybody knows that CNN is going, has been going south for a few years now. They've been losing money and not making any profit. And it begs you to wonder, why are they still even open? Because
right.
To me, I think a lot of these big media companies are more valuable not because they make profit, because of their ability to shape opinion, which can be very, very profitable, exponentially more profitable than a media company could be. These guys can shape opinion and make corporations billions and billions of dollars,
right,
through their programming and stuff. But to me, I think this is, and for this guy from CNN to actually go on TV and talk about it, I mean, it's good news, I think, for people in general, for anybody in the alternative media, anybody that's, concerned about the propaganda that's fed to us from these corporate media outlets like CNN, Fox News, and all that stuff. So, I mean, it's a positive step, and independent media is growing by the day. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and one thing we have to be aware of, is organizations like Vice, how Fox News is kind of taking a big stake in Vice, and how these companies are trying to create like independent news organizations. At least that's what they seem like. But in the end, when it comes down to it, it may be CNN behind it, it may be Fox News behind it, it may be one of these big media giants that are actually acting like it's independent news, just like Vice is becoming quickly.
Right.
So to me, I guess this is a good step, and it's just a sign of the times. I mean, this is the future. We added 2 new journalists today. I mean, so the anti-media really is like getting bigger and better. At the same time, CNN and all these guys are really starting to feel the pain. They're not really adapting well. They're just too big to adapt. I mean, they're too big. They're to the government, they're too big to fail. But when it comes down to reality, when it comes down to just economics, I mean, these aren't no longer viable companies a lot of times.
No.
A lot of these guys are.
I was just going to say, man, I believe that what we're starting to see is these charades are starting to not really work on the people anymore, and people are starting to dig into really the financial aspects of our country and the way that we subsidize these monopolies who really on their own couldn't exist. These are the same companies. You can look at all of the major corporations that have monopolies. They're all subsidized by us. We, in fact, pay to have zero choice and crappy quality. So that's what it's coming to, man. People are starting to wake up. Why would you go watch CNN where you're going to get bombarded by beta waves, advertising, and propaganda, and you can go on the internet, look at news on one side, watch a show on another, and be way more productive at the same time probably talking to somebody in the room? There's just no future in the dinosaur industry, period.
Yeah, man, I agree. It's a sign of it's even larger than just the media. I mean, this is the direction that a lot of these corporations are heading in. What was it? One of the earnings that set the market going down last week was the Walmart earnings, right? The Walmart earnings were off. They were way off what they thought they were going to be, and they've got an increasingly shrinking domestic sales. Man, a lot of people are saying no to Walmart now. A lot of people are getting tired of Walmart. People don't want to deal with it. People understand that it's in a way, it is kind of immoral to buy from Walmart, considering the fact that a lot of those goods are made with very questionable labor, if not outright slave labor. And so people, I think, are finally morally starting to understand. And then economically, it's well, we don't even have money to spend to buy crap at Walmart. That's the other thing.
The worst thing is that Walmart's just like the tip of the iceberg where it's all pervasive. For instance, because they have their own their own fleet of trucks, and they're now flush with cash and have nothing to do with it, and their sales are going down. The only thing they can think to do now is to increase the efficiency of their trucks. Great news, right? Sure, but then any independent owner-operator is now going to be held to these insane restrictions on gas mileage, and they can't buy a new truck. So what does Walmart do when it's basically going through its contraction death knell? It decides to go and ruin a second industry and a third and a fourth, and soon it'll have medical care inside Walmart's because they're trying to get that now. So do you want that? Do you want an all-encompassing, welcome to Costco, I love you type of stupid idiocracy thing where it's a one-stop shop for morons? Nobody wants that stuff. We want small mom-and-pop businesses back because they care more.
Not only that, as this future comes around, and if we look at what independent media is doing to CNN, right, we're eating away at their bottom line, eating away at their traffic, eating away at their viewership. Their advertising money is going down because not as many people are watching them on TV. This is the same thing that ideas like 3D printing and Bitcoin are going to bring to retail, like Walmart, Best Buy, a lot of these other places that sell this kind of crap.
Yep.
It's going to change the whole economic fabric, just like the independent media is doing to the corporate media.
Exactly. Everything's going to have to become resource-based. It doesn't matter what big corporations are going to try to do as far as brainwashing goes and tell you that we can continue our lifestyles, especially in our country, with no change. It's not going to happen, but it's not a bad thing. We can actually start taking a lot of their power and control away from them and bring it back to us at an individual level. I think we've talked about before. A new cottage industry is springing up with 3D printing. Why would you go to Target or Walmart and spend 3, 4, 5 times for something you can actually make at home? It doesn't make any sense. And the 3D printer will do to big box chains what the internet did to basically every industry. It's streamlining it for your home, for your control.
Yeah, man, and it's also decentralizing, and it's got that factor, and that's the same factor that the independent media carries, is the decentralizing factor. You don't have these huge news bureaus yet. You got a bunch of decentralized websites that aren't all carried under one umbrella. They're all separate entities. Yeah, they cooperate, they work together. I mean, we work with like 20 or 30 different websites in a cooperative manner. But we don't monopolize on the information. That's the whole key. And that's the opposite of what the corporate media does. AP, we got contacted recently by Getty Images because somebody accidentally used one of their little pictures for a thumbnail image, and they filed a cease and desist against us. I've got a friend that's been sued by image companies and stuff. I mean,
right.
It's horrible the way that they go about doing their business, man. They're like literally, a little tiny website wants to use my picture. Okay, let's sue them. It's like, right. Oh, that's horrible. I would understand.
Well, intellectual property rights, it's one of the biggest problems we're facing now, because where's the innovation going to come from without open source? Do you honestly think with 7 billion people in the world, you're going to be able to come up with the best ideas with your small little team of your best and brightest? When the fact is, you're not getting the best and brightest because they don't want to work for a big corp. So you're getting guys that are kind of mid-level. They're working as a massive team, and they're accomplishing some great things. But honestly, we're not going about things the best way. We're really not.
Somebody just called us from, I think, 754 area code, but I had to hang up because it was like a really loud siren in the background. Hopefully nothing bad's happening. But whoever that was, feel free to call back in if you can get some quiet, because it was just a little too loud for us here on the radio side of things. But yeah, I see this as a positive thing, man, and it's sad that these people it's sad that they're gonna lose their jobs, but hopefully they'll come out and they'll actually open up about what goes on,
right.
Like Amber Lyon did when she blew the whistle,
right.
how CNN was taking bribes from dictators and stuff. So hopefully a few of these 300 people that get laid off have something to say, and will actually go to where their conscience has probably been and start working in independent media, because a lot of these guys that are towing the line up in these big companies, they're doing it. They're not doing it happily. I mean, they're paid to say what they're supposed to say, but these guys, a lot of times, I think they don't agree.
Yep, and I think they're also starting to understand that, listen, their real reason for working at a big job is it was about having pretty much protection, right? It was about having a big corporation that would ensure that you would have some kind of productivity and a way to provide for yourself. What if these big corporations get down to skeleton crews, since it's all automated, and we have millions and millions and millions of people that are very, very technically savvy, unemployed, and hopeless? You see what the reason why a program like PRISM was developed, because they understand the people that are losing their jobs can bring it all down, man. And I think that the reason why they're so paranoid about it is they're behind. They really are. How many people could possibly work for one organization against all the 300 million people that live here?
Yeah, that's a great point. Hey, we have a caller on from 724 area code. How's it going? You're on the Anti-Media.
Hey, what's up, man? It's Cassius.
Hey, what's up, Cassius? So Cassius Methel is one of our writers at the Anti-Media, and you're in Seattle right now, aren't you?
Yep, standing right at Pike Place in downtown Seattle.
Nice, man. So we were gonna have you call in tonight because you've been covering this story that's been going on in Mexico, and I think it all kind of ties in here because a lot of the reason why there's so much turmoil in Mexico is one, NAFTA, which is a big time crony capitalist trade policy, and then also you got this crazy drug war and all the economic problems that come along with that. But you've been covering this story from Mexico where these 58 students basically more or less disappeared. Now it's being pretty much revealed that they've been killed and buried in mass grave. You want to go into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, sure, man. There's just so many things that are unclear about this situation. Like, they're starting to say that those graves might not be the students. There's several different conflicting accounts, and I think the implications of this are huge, but they're not clear at all yet because, I mean, there's a lot of confusion about it, like why these students were killed in the first place, whose interests, it fulfills to do that. I mean, we can write about what we hear about it right now, but I think later there are going to be some really clear implications about it that, play into this whole concept of everything in the world intensifying right now. Like, it seems to me like just a lot of things are heating up at the same time right now. And I don't know, like, sometimes I think maybe there's like a specific plan to make all these things, seem like too much right now, like Ebola and the ISIS thing. And I think that, the implications will become clearer later, but right now we just sit and watch, and I don't know, it's confusing. What do you think?
Well,
I think it's classic order out of chaos that they're bringing up, man. They're just prepping it.
Yeah, I mean, I think simultaneously with all this chaos, there's this underlying will to, have everything be better in every society where all this is happening. There's like in Southwest Mexico, there's that one community that has their own police force and kicked out, the police that were there before, and they're doing everything for themselves now. I think, maybe that will keep happening, and it will, become more commonplace that towns take policing into their own hands. And the way they just sent, these government police to go into, what was it, like 13 towns? I think it's like a shallow attempt to, stop this movement of people starting to police themselves. And I think it's a pretty pathetic attempt because, it's just so naturally happening. It's just the natural outcome of this. So I think it's like an attempt to stop that. And I don't think it's very successful. I don't think it's going to be successful.
Yeah, these guys are really getting down to this. They're really getting down to applying a lot of this anarchist type of ideology in real life, and that's what the Zapatistas and that's what these self-defense groups really are. They're saying, you know what? Screw the government. The government's corrupt. Screw the cartels. Screw the cops. All of you guys are done. We're kicking you all out, and we're going to police ourselves. We're going to take care of everything ourselves. And that's what we're starting to see down in Michoacan and states like that. Where there's groups that are autonomous, and it's basically they turn their area into like sovereign territory. It would almost think of it almost as like a Indian reservation in the U.S., except these guys are like have physically thrown the government out, and now they're controlling the land on their own via with arms and all that stuff, and that's what these guys are doing.
Yeah, those police forces are really active too. I mean, they stand around and have checkpoints like 24/7, and they're active. They really do what they do out of genuine concern for their community, and that that feeling you get and they get from being together with their police. I think that it's just going to be really obvious increasingly that that's the best way to go, and it's not stoppable, this movement of, towards Islam.
Yep, and I would love to see that come here too, because, we have guys armed to the teeth that don't care about us anymore either, so we're going to have to take things back too.
Sometimes
Exactly.
I think it's just, sometimes I think it's just going to take some kind of struggle to get us to that point, because what's going to give someone the real motivation to stand up and do something like that? Oppression, struggle, like what's happening in Mexico.
Exactly, man, and that's why I don't think there's horrible things happening to people all over the world right now, but in the long game, in the sum of all things, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because through struggle is what comes change, man, and it's evolution. Whenever you're faced with a tough situation, you have to evolve, right? And that's what's happening, man. And that's what, I said this when the Ferguson stuff first started popping off. And I said that the next Martin Luther King is probably going to be forged out of the fires of Ferguson, man. And I to this day, I still think it's going to happen one way or another, man. Like, out of all this struggle always comes change, and we gotta work for the positive change. Okay, you're
totally right, Nick.
We have a caller in from 818. Is that you, Manny?
You got it, brother. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. Do you wanna chime in on this stuff we're talking about with Mexico?
Well, you're talking about right in my home state and also my hometown. So, we had a big march down there in Acapulco, Guerrero, and of course, been having a lot of stuff happening in the main city where they've been doing the protesters, Ayutthaya, Guerrero, which is my home state, but not my town. And basically, it's like what, we were discussing the other day, with, Debbie Shorts, basically saying the same thing. And of course, you said the same thing. This is happening. This is basically the side effects of basically October 2nd of 1968. The students are tired of, their education going to basically down the toilet and stuff like that, where the government is not paying attention to them. They want to kill, there's no doubt that they want to kill the next generation, so that there's, the government here and the government there are getting tired of people that are thinking outside the box and stuff like that. They're tired of people like myself that are willing to die for justice. People say, are you willing to die for justice? I'm willing to die for it. How many people will actually go for it, stuff like that? And it's getting out of hand down there, and we're getting a lot of support by the third parties down there, but we're getting a lot of support by, other, when you got state senators getting arrested in Ferguson, Missouri, imagine what's happening in Mexico when some senator decides to come down there and support us from the third party, the Green Party, the Independent Party, name it, and stuff like that. So it's really going crazy. We closed down the main road in Acapulco. The main road to the beach, where all the tourists go and stuff like that. Marches down there are really, and people say, well, did you get a permit? Are you kidding me, dude? In Mexico, we don't get permits. We just do it, and stuff like that. That's what makes it so different in the United States and stuff like that, So.
Yeah, I think, personally, I think that these protesters, the reason that they were killed is because that they're getting so highly organized and so effective. And I think what Cassius hinted at earlier about how the self-defense idea is starting to spread throughout Mexico, that they're trying to undermine these groups before they even, really make their move. So they arrest a bunch of students, they kill a bunch of students, all the organizers and stuff. I think that there's a big movement in Mexico that's rising because of all the corruption, because of all the police corruption, all the drug cartels, everything. I went to a protest here in San Diego on Friday, and it was in support of the students that are missing. And I can tell you, man, the organization it's very organized. The people are very dedicated, and they're so fed up with everything that's gone on, whether it's their own government, the U.S. government with things like NAFTA, providing arms to the Mexican government that they use against protesters,
I'm curious.
Giving immunity to the drug cartels and all that stuff, and of course the drug war. We can't forget about the drug war. I think the people have just put up with so much and so much corruption and so many awful things done to them that now this self-defense attitude is spreading everywhere, and now they're just trying to put out all these fires.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's actually correct and stuff like that, So I'm going to be going down your way on Wednesday because I need to talk to a journalist friend of mine that's coming down there from Acapulco. Can't mention his name on there, obviously. Very underground and stuff like that. But I'm killing two birds with one stone. I'm also going down there, Nick, I'm going to be down there at 6 o'clock at City Heights Library and Performance Annex. We're doing the big protest against police brutality down there. So I'm joining, my comrades to support San Diego down there. So I'm going your way,
Awesome. I'll actually see you there on the 22nd, right, on Wednesday?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I'll see you there, man. I'll be there as well.
Oh, okay. Looking forward to it.
So, beyond this thing in Mexico, and of course it has bigger implications here because it's spreading these ideas, I think, of you know what? The government is no good. The cops are no good. The corporations do nothing but take advantage of people. I think it's spreading all over the place, and it's the Arab Spring was definitely rooted in that. Did it get co-opted in many places? Yes, but these ideas and these feelings are rooted there, and in Syria the same thing. Now it's been co-opted by all these different actors and stuff. But at the very beginning, the people were upset at Assad, and they wanted reform. We went in there and backed up we backed them with weapons, all that stuff, turned it into a civil war, and now it's fallen to pieces. But the ideas, I think, are still there. People truly do want freedom all over the world, and they're just trying to figure out how exactly are they going to get that, and it's expressed in a bunch of different ways. Now, the problem is the U.S. government and other big actors, in a lesser way, Russia, have a tendency of going in and co-opting these movements. Now, do these movements always springing up in places where it's like the worst possible place? Yeah, like Ukraine. Well, in Ukraine, if this stuff springs up and it causes Russia to lose access to its pipelines, there's going to be a huge geopolitical confrontation, and that's the thing that's so maybe coincidental, but probably not, about all these locations like Syria, like Ukraine, where they've turned into these prolonged conflicts. Well, the reason being is the U.S. couldn't topple the government as easy because the Russians were propping up the other government. And in Egypt, it was different. Egypt, we were propping up both sides. We propped up, we had the dictator propped up, and then we had the military propped up, and so in the end, it didn't really matter. Who's in charge of Egypt now? Well, the military. Who built their military? We did. So, and that also shows kind of why they took a tougher stance against Palestine and all that stuff, because they are puppets of the U.S. when it comes down to it. But I guess what I'm getting at here, man, is what can we do to ensure that these people in these countries can actually have a chance at real freedom without being co-opted?
Spread the tech. I think the only way, man, because if we open source a way for people to build all their technology to get themselves off grid, like a lot of people are doing old school in Africa right now with like the solar distiller units where they don't need to go get water, it comes to them. That stuff's going to be revolutionary. If we don't need government anymore, they don't exist. That's as simple as it is.
I think we need to just really focus our efforts on having everything we need to function as a society without government, and just piece by piece, step by step, work calculatedly towards that goal. Get off the dollar, get off the water supplies they have, get off everything. It just takes time,
Yeah,
the only thing we can do, because we can't fight them. You cannot have a violent revolution. I promise you, it will not work, and a lot of people will die unnecessarily.
I absolutely.
There's only going to be one revolution: the mind. That's it.
Yeah, man. People that think that there's some chance of defeating the U.S. government with force when they have DARPA and when they have everything they have, that's just not logical. They have enough weapons to equip all these people around the world. It's crazy.
Well, let's let's be real
Think
with
about
it.
what they're giving ISIS. They're giving ISIS stuff from the 80s, dude. The 80s.
Damn, I didn't know that.
I mean, let's be real with it. If it came down to Americans trying to overthrow the government by brute force, it wouldn't be the military shooting us. It'd be drones. I mean, it'd be a Terminator movie all over again, dude. I mean, literally.
I think that's one of the biggest threats to us that is posed by the U.S. government. The fact that they're continuing to go with DARPA and develop things like robot dogs that can hunt for you and recognize your face, facial recognition drones. That stuff is, I think that's kind of underreported on how very deadly that is, because so many people to operate those, that many people, there's no brainwashed people necessary for all those automated weapons.
Exactly, and you could run them to be self-autonomous based on like algorithms and stuff like that, and they can run on their own. There won't be a human behind that thing with a conscience. Right now, and not all the drone strikes, because you got to keep in mind that in the Middle East, in these drone strikes we're doing in Yemen, Pakistan, Afghanistan, some of these strikes are actually being carried out by algorithm. There's not even a guy in control of it. They're done by doing heat signatures and putting heat signatures into an algorithm and all that stuff. And then they'll just automatically drop missiles on people when they decide it's a target. Now, are these things very accurate? No, they actually mostly kill civilians, but that's not stopping them from happening. It's still happening. So, the idea of like the Terminator scenario is very real, and it's actually happening to a lot of people around the world right now. And our tax dollars are actually paying for that stuff, and it's pretty horrible. Now, like other technologies that we've seen come home to roost, I mean, look at the MRAPs and stuff at the police stations. To think that these autonomous drones aren't going to come home to roost in a few years, you'd be insane. You know what I mean? It's going to happen, and it's up to us. I mean, dude, are we going to let it happen or not? I mean, what was it? I think it was actually Seattle where they said no to the drones, and they said, hell no, get those things out of here. But then guess who took them?
Seattle.
Yeah, and then the LAPD took charge of them. The LAPD, yeah, we'll take them.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so I mean, certain places are having success in kind of, deterring these drones, but other places are just having that, getting a bunch of them, including LA and including here in San Diego. Our sheriff's department has drones as well here.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm pretty sure the Sacramento.
One of the things we need to get away from, like Nick was saying, how do we change things? Well, it's going to have to be grassroots, because the United States, every time somebody's trying to create the democracy, I don't care where, they always get their noses into it. They always try to eliminate our leaders that are doing good stuff, like Martin Luther King. That he didn't just get shot by just some wacko and stuff like that. Kennedy and all those people are trying to do some good stuff. Those people get eliminated right away, stuff like that. And so we need to get into, basically our own community money. We need to get off the grid. We need to really make, changes where we actually, right now, one of the things that can happen for the United States that would be great, we need martial law in this country. Create martial law, because I think that's the only thing that's going to wake up people. Because people go to vote for American Idol. They're more interested in voting for American Idol. Who in the hell won the Super Bowl? Who in the hell is going to win the World Series? And stuff like that. I'm sorry, nothing against sports, but you know what? Sports is corrupting us completely. And one of the worst things that's happening in this country is that people are paying attention to the wrong things, and we need to get our priorities straight. I think if we create martial law, I think people will wake up and stuff like that. And it's not something that I want for this country, but I think it needs to happen for people to wake up.
Yeah.
They tested it with Boston bombing, and look what happened. So we understand already there's going to be certain parts of the country that are just going to take it. We already know it. I think the biggest problem they have right now, places like Ferguson, places where people have been cut down so long, no matter what you tell them to do, they are not going to do it. And I think that's the biggest problem they're having right now and why they're arming the police, but it's going to backfire, man. Do you really think the police are going to put their own family in danger by shooting people they live with in the community? When everything's said and done, everyone's going to know who was a cop, and you're dead, dude. So as long as these cops think they're above the law, they will pay like everybody else will when it all hits the fan.
Well, hey, there's another story that Cassius covered a few days back about how these 44 cops or something signed a petition to have their chief fired because the chief was corrupt. So I think people are kind of getting out of step, that these people are starting to cross the thin blue line and stuff because the public pressure is working. And back to what Manny was saying about martial law and stuff, and it's really unfortunate that I actually agree with you because, if you look at it from a situation like what happened in Ferguson, of course it's a horrible tragedy and the guy died, but at the same time, people really started questioning the police state after that point, so even with these horrible tragedies, it actually brings people closer to the realization of what is actually happening and what actually has to be done.
Yeah, it's coming from struggle, learning from struggle like that. Life wouldn't be the same without that. It's the thing that shapes a lot of great things, And, in South Carolina, those 44 officers they signed a petition to get the chief fired. He's not fired yet, but maybe he will be. And just the act of doing that and, showing all these other officers who hear that across the country that they can do that and actually do something about that corruption, it's just amazing. I don't think I've seen an incident quite like that yet. And I just think, I think some cops will stand up to this and that will create a ripple effect. And the bridge between corrupt cops, blatantly corrupt cops, and cops that have some kind of good intention, somewhere, will become a much more defined line increasingly. And something will happen with that escalation,
Yeah, and then you got those other cops down in Florida, I think it was, where Waldo County, I think, where they basically, these guys blew the whistle on their chief, giving them some kind of quota to pull people over. And then, so that was awesome that they came out and actually, said that. And then the whole police department got disbanded.
Yeah, man, that disbandment was surprising. It seemed a little bit minor, just to being a ticket quota at first, but clearly there's some other things that we're not hearing about that come into play when it comes to doing something as bold as, standing up for your whole department altogether against the chief, There must have been a lot of things that we don't know about that happened before that. But even though it was minor, it was just a traffic ticket quota, there's a lot of underlying stuff. It's great, man. It's great.
So I wanted to get your guys' thought on this new Apple Pay thing, where Apple's trying to reinvent the wallet more or less and allow you to pay for a bunch of things, whether at Starbucks, 7-Eleven, convenience stores, whatever, with your iPhone. I think there's a couple implications with this thing when it comes down to the cashless economy, when it comes down to talking about being anonymous with your spending, which I think is actually a big thing that is people don't make that big of a deal out of it, but I think that being able to spend money anonymously is a huge, huge thing that we don't think about, and I think it has a lot of psychological impacts and stuff as well. So what do you guys think about this Apple Pay and maybe how it compares to Bitcoin, or what do you think they're trying to do with this?
It's going to neuter the anonymity of the only thing that you actually have in your life with power, which is your earning. With your spending potential being tied to this grid system, they have complete control over your whole life. It hasn't started yet, but that's the whole plan.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. It's just another consolidation of something that used to be separate from a phone. In a phone, it's kind of weird, this trend of trying to consolidate all these different tools into one device. It's like they want to have a monopoly of all these things, like clock in your phone, music player now, everything.
What I want to know...
I think what he said about, keeping track of you because you're leaving a money trail, stuff like that. You asked Manny, well, what's a credit card? I don't know what a credit card is, dude. This Latino pays in cash all the time, in cash. There's no such thing as paper trail. I kind of learned that from, the boys across the border and stuff like that. You don't need paper trail whenever possible because the government's trying to keep, they want to make your move. It's like the internet. They already know, if you're hitting their, their page and how much you're spending, how much you're doing that. It's invasive of privacy and stuff like that. It really is,
So to me, this begs the question of when are we going to see the anti-phone? When are we going to see a phone that is actually a decentralized phone network that is super encrypted, that has a Bitcoin payment system, and all this stuff that we know is actually viable technology? Like,
Truly,
out of all of this oppression when it comes to keeping track of us, spying on us with the NSA, all that stuff, all of it adds up, and people are more and more trying to be more secure. Even Apple and Google are now that the FBI is supposedly mad because Apple and Google are saying they're going to encrypt their data. But what I'm talking about is, when are we going to see one that is actually much, much better than the crap that we have now? I think it's soon, but I don't know.
You have to crowdfund or from the ground up network. You'd have to crowdfund it, and it would cost hundreds of billions of dollars, because these big companies are all subsidized by government. They don't exist without it. They are government, so that means government owns Verizon, AT&T, and, well, at least Sprint's Japanese, but they're still under the thumb of the government. So you have to build it straight up, man. Why would they build this giant network for you if they couldn't sign you? There's no other reason. They don't give a shit if you can call other people. They don't care about that. So you'd have to have somebody like, I don't know, who has the money to do that? Who has $500 billion to build a network?
The only people that can do it is like a enormous crowdfunding campaign.
Yep.
I think people that have a desire to use these alternatives are going to become more focused with their efforts as time drags on. I think in this next year, we're going to start seeing a real new era for things like that, agorist things, doing things ourselves, growing food, getting land, our own phones, our own, Facebook type thing. I think that's the next step, and we're recognizing it right now. So the people that actually want to do this should stick together and crowdfund those kinds of things. And it will be slow, but, people that have the vision that we do will stick together and do this. And then more people that didn't quite see it, like when we started, will see it and then get into it, and it'll grow.
What we need is
all it's going to take is. Oh, go ahead, man. Sorry.
What we need is an open source phone that's based on like Raspberry Pi or something, where you can go buy the screen over at Circuit City or at a Radio Shack or Best Buy or whatever, and just throw a few pieces of hardware on it, and where it's just so open source that you literally can manufacture, using your 3D printer, you could probably manufacture a phone for like $50-$60. And then, boom, you just got phones on the throwaway basis or whatever, where you can put like sick-ass operating system, removable storage on them and all that. I mean, that's probably what we're going to see, man, is an open-source DIY phone that's going to be pretty sick. That's going to be like you could use it anonymously and use it as like a throwaway or whatever.
And we could use the Greek workaround for the network, too, using the Dish network.
Yeah, man, and like mesh networks and stuff like that. There's a bunch of different, off-the-grid type of networks that aren't based on these, ISPs like, Cox or Verizon, whoever supplies your cable and internet. These are giant monopolies. So relying on those guys is a bad idea, because you can have your prices skyrocket. You could have your services throttled back thanks to the net neutrality ruling and all that crap. So, I mean, that's a big question. Getting outside of the internet grid is a big thing that I think we need to talk about more, because we talk about the energy grid and how mostly everybody is tied into that. I mean, the internet grid is even worse, and that stuff's controlled by governments and ISPs. That's it. I mean, we see how easy they mine our data and stuff, with the NSA, whether through Verizon or Apple, Google, whatever. They all travel through a few networks that are huge monopolies, and that's a big point, I think, where we're kind of weak on, and we need to improve on that, and then the hardware that we use to access that network.
Yeah, definitely. We need our infrastructure in our own hands, and we need to, have the whole independent media be on a new kind of infrastructure, and just gradually. I mean, the first step is people realizing that they need to really pursue efforts to do that, and just make a really conscious effort to not use Google, Facebook, all those things. There's that one site that's similar to Facebook that's blowing up right now. What's it called again?
Sue?
CSU? I don't think it's called that. It's like it's that thing where you got to get invited to it. It's that website, you know.
Elo, man, that's what it's called.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so you know, there's Tor, the Onion router. I think that was one of the first examples of something like this that, you know, motivated a lot of people to get an idea, to get a new infrastructure, a new internet, and I think it's, you know, it's coming. We just have to really put effort into it.
Yeah, and if you look at Tor, man, it's an example of how anonymity can really increase your avenues and increase your the things that you're willing to do. Because people on Tor download a lot of illegal movies and, you know, all that stuff that they wouldn't do on the regular internet because they have the anonymous factor. And it all kind of ties back to this Apple Pay thing, because the biggest problem I see with Apple Pay, I agree with you guys, is that it removes the anonymous factor, and that factor has a very big impact on your psyche and the way you spend your money, the things that you're willing to spend your money on. If you lose the anonymous factor, you could lose the way that you think about things, the way you do things, you know. And imagine when you think about it this way, when you want to get stuff that's not on the regular marketplace. You know, where you can't just go buy it at a store. I don't care what it is. You're buying it from a friend, and it's something that's not available at a store. How are you going to pay these people? So, you know, the thing about this Apple Pay, maybe this is going to be the currency for all your stuff that you don't care about having a paper trail, and then everything else moves to an alternative thing, which is most likely to be based on Bitcoin. When it comes to electronic currency, or maybe people start shifting back to physical currencies like silver dimes, silver quarters, and small things like that. I don't know. But I think we're going to, as we see the shift away from a cash-based society, we're going to see like a diverging economy where you're going to have the Apple Pay economy and the Google Pay, or whatever Google's going to come up with, whatever. And then you're going to have the black market finance, which is going to be based on physical currency, Bitcoin, other barter goods like maybe cannabis and things like that. So, you know, like anything else, it's going to have a positive and a negative. Maybe this is going to be a good thing. Maybe all the on the book financing is going, you know, receiving a paper trail. Maybe that's going to be a good thing because it's going to push the black market into places that it wouldn't have been before. I don't know. I guess we're going to have to see. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, that would be a great outcome of that. Just like any other struggle, a good thing to come out of it. You know, the black market coming out even stronger than it was before. I think that's really viable with people that are doing what we're doing. You know, those people will probably want to do that in the future, and the people that are using, you know, credit cards and stuff right now will probably do the Google Pay thing. You know, we'll just go on this path, and hopefully more people will follow the path of, you know, alternative currency, and that number will increase, that proportion.
Yep, but we got to be careful that we don't do what Argentina did, which is isolate themselves from the world financial market, and now they're basically an entire black market country. And that can be a big issue. So I think what Nick said is right. We want to have two separate paths, one where we don't give a crap if you can see what we buy with toothpaste and PP and all that other stupid stuff, and things we actually care about. We have to keep cash, especially if it's not cash, because it's worthless, gold and silver, right?
Yeah, some kind of mineral that is intangible, you know?
Something
like
you can trade, something that holds value. So I guess like every geographical region will have something different that holds value. I mean, thinking about Southern California, how we had this massive drought and like no rain. I mean, 2 days this week, it's already looked like it was going to rain. It just didn't rain at all. And I mean, this drought just won't break. But I mean, sooner or later in Southern California, if this drought continues on for another 10 years, water is going to be a commodity that is going to hold very good value. You could have a couple gallons of clean spring water, and you could actually use that as a currency. I mean, it sounds crazy now, but I mean, water is probably the oldest and most basic currency in the world. I mean, it's what everybody needs to survive.
Get a Sol Aqua. I tell everyone, get a Sol Aqua. It's $500, and it gives you 1.5 gallons for life. Every day. For free.
So, everywhere, no matter where you're at, you could have something different as currency. If you're in a place where cannabis is hard to come by, then cannabis may be a good currency to hold on to because it'll hold value, and there's different ways around it. But we talked about this actually last show. It's like, are we going to wait around for the stock market to finally crash? Are we going to finally wait for the petrodollar to lose its dominance? Or are we going to start acting now in a way that's going to say, hey, the petrodollar lost its dominance. Okay, doesn't matter. I'm already prepared for that. This is the place that we want to be, because otherwise, people that are listening, people that know what's going on with the Federal Reserve, all this stuff, the debt-based monetary system, fractional reserve banking, it's all unsustainable stuff. The average lifespan of these things is like 37 years, and we've outlived ours by a lot. We all know it's not going to last forever. Just like we all know Social Security is not going to last forever. I think that it'd be smarter to act now and not just wait for it to happen. And that way, when everything's said and done, people will actually say, "Oh, well, these people actually knew what was going on. Maybe we should start, asking them why society collapsed and what can we do to fix things. We got to be proactive about when we know about these things, make actions that aren't going to harm us now." Buying silver and stuff now is not going to harm you, because if you need the money back, you can always sell it back for basically the same price. But if the financial system does go bad, then the silver that you have is going to be holding its value very well against basically everything else. So
or grow.
Setting up food co-ops, setting up neighborhood gardens, community gardens and stuff like that. Figuring out ways to take care of your water. These are the basic things, that can be treated as a currency. It's going to keep you alive. And you're not going to have to be going to the government asking for food when the financial crisis happens, and that's what we want to kind of do is be proactive with it, because if not, then we're just waiting for it to happen, and it's not a good thing.
Absolutely.
Well, I think one of the people, like we said last week, people need to get off the medication. They're over medicated in this country. Another problem too is, people are lazy. They don't touch their bases with nature. It's like I was working the fields when I was here illegally in this country, and people says, how come our tomatoes are only $4 a pound? Well, hell, if I wasn't picking the tomatoes, they'd be $10 a pound, because people in the United States don't want to be picking up no crops. You know what I mean? Especially with 120 degrees down there in Calexico, California, next to the border of Mexicali, So people need to be in touch with nature. They need to get out there and do it,
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
And if we all had micro farms, we wouldn't need to have these people doing these awful jobs. They could be pursuing their passions and getting into schools and learning how to advance our society instead of doing jobs robots really could be doing now, or we could do ourselves on an individual level. If everybody had a micro farm and you put 2 hours in a day, you're fed.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. The thing that's stopping a lot of people in America from pursuing these things and truly putting effort into it, I think, is the fact that they have to make Federal Reserve notes to eat, and they have to do bullshit and go through all these systematic things just to get their money to eat. And they don't feel like they have any time to do anything that we should be doing to help our society, things that are overlooked by most people. They have to make their Federal Reserve notes. That's how it is. They feel like they don't have enough time.
Yeah, man. The monetary system, it's a hegemony, right? And we're all forced into it. If you live in the U.S. and if you live in a lot of other countries, you're actually forced into using the dollar. And the full might of the U.S. military is there to enforce that, and we saw that, and it kind of brings up, I saw an article today about what happened in Libya and what we did there, and, Libya was actually basically the richest country in Africa before we overthrew Gaddafi, which was, I think, 2012, 2013, and we overthrew Gaddafi. Now Libya is basically teetering on a failed state.
They're in a civil war.
Yeah, and this is what we do to these countries, man, and it's not good. We got to stop doing it. And the whole reason behind what we did with Gaddafi, if we look back, Well, it was to defend the petrodollar, of course.
Right.
Because
Just
Gaddafi
like the
wanted
gold
standard.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that gold standard that he wanted to put on Africa.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, he wanted to go to a gold-backed African currency and make an African Union, which really would have put pressure on every country in the world, because Africa's got massive resources and they're just enormous. And if there was ever one economic entity that controlled all of that, they couldn't be touched.
Yeah, they'd be basically like as strong as Russia almost. And geopolitically, that didn't sound good for the U.S. Then they threatened the petrodollar. And you know, this is all. I think this is the whole petrodollar positioning and all the stances being taken right now. Syria, Ukraine. It's all about the petrodollar because you got the pipelines coming up that need to go through Syria, and Assad is blocking the pipelines because Putin needs the pipelines going through Ukraine to feed Europe, because Russia feeds Europe like 70% of its gas or something like that. And basically the West and the U.S.-aligned nations are trying to cut Russia out of Europe by throwing a pipeline through the Middle East, up through Turkey, and then into Europe. Coming from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and all these countries. So when we look down at the very root of what's going on in Syria and Ukraine, it probably has to do with the petrodollar. It has to do with economic things. It has to do with pipelines. Because
they bombed the oil fields.
Yeah, man. And so I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but the whole area that ISIS controls is actually the same path that the pipeline is planned to be built on. So when these guys go in and take care of, so what they're basically, I mean, this is what I'm seeing happening. They're saying, okay, we're not going to actually overthrow Assad. We're going to let Assad have that side of the country. We're going to cut the country in half. Half of it's going to go to the moderates, and then we're going to build our pipeline through that half of it. You know, and that's probably what's going to end up coming out of this whole thing, and that's what these guys are doing. They're over there. They propped up ISIS to overthrow a path through that country, and then they're going to go in and build a pipeline. They're going to try to cut Russia out of Europe, and this is all about the petrodollar. And this is all positioning that is actually very bad, because this kind of positioning is the kind of stuff that leads us into World War III. And this is stuff that we should be very much in opposition of.
I mean, today the CEO of Total died in a plane crash, and he was against the petrodollar, and assassinations will start, and that happened in Russia. So imagine the statement that made. They're not going to let this thing go. They've been running the world for 70 years, and it's not going to go without a fight. And Russia and China made their own agreement, man. They're exchanging oil for gold, believe it or not. Russia's giving their oil to China for China's gold that they took from us because of our debt. So the world's going to go into two hemispheres soon. I don't know if I want to be stuck on this side. You know what I mean?
Hopefully there'll be some countries that remain sovereign, remain neutral, and maybe we can go there.
Hopefully it's Uruguay or Chile. That's where I want to go. I think that South America might be the right option. I don't know. I think so.
I could tell you from experience, you're on the right path, man. Chile, Panama. Yeah. I'd even go so far as to say wherever they just legalized it, Uruguay. I mean, all of those places they're freedom loving.
Yeah.
And even though they do have their revolts that get bloody, they're for a reason. So.
Yeah, I mean, but the other good qualities probably outweigh that. We can take care of ourselves. Chile, Uruguay, that's where I want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. So, we do got to be in opposition of this foreign policy, because keeping Russia at bay economically, letting them have Europe and stuff, I mean, that's going to appease them. If we try to cut them out in order to preserve the petrodollar, I mean, that's a horrible equation. We're going to radicalize the East. China, Russia will get radicalized, and then we're going to see a conflict. The size that we haven't seen since World War II, it's going to be probably a lot bigger, too. So we've got to stop this stuff. Thank you guys for calling in. Great calls tonight. Thank everybody for listening. Make sure you catch us on Wednesday night, same time.
Good, Nick. See you once.
Good talk.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.